we are actually went live again to another office hours, and my name is Emil, and today I'm hosting Adam, one of our software engineers at Novu. Adam, how you doing, man?
Hello. Yeah, I'm fine. Very good.
All right, let's start kind of the usual sequence, the usual way, where just tell us where you're joining us from. What is it the time for you? Like just drop a hi in the chat if you are on YouTube. Um, like I know that for me it's yeah, it's 6:30 p.m. What it's in your place, Adam?
It's 5:30. So yeah,
5:30. All right, yeah, so you are an hour behind. Nice.
yeah,
All right. So, meanwhile, the folks that are going to join us in the chat and um, just tell us where they are joining us from. Let's start with a quick introduction. Adam, tell us a bit about yourself. I think that I would just not be able to make the best intro, but I think that you are definitely able to do that.
sure. So hello, I'm Adam. I'm quite a new joiner in Novu. I've been here, I think, for like 4 months so far. So yeah, I haven't done much yet, but one of the things I did is the things we are going to talk about now. And yeah, I'm currently in team platform. Uh,
Mhm.
and previously I've been working as a software engineer for like 6 or 7 years. Uh, and yeah, then I decided I would like to try to do something in open source as Novo is. So yeah, I'm happy to be there.
Amazing, amazing. And I know that the concept of kind of the basically the team separation is somewhat new to Novo. So, do you mind maybe share what actually kind of falls under team platform that you are part of?
Yeah, so it's basically uh, like the general things about like a novel platform. So you can imagine stuff like authentication and authorization we did now, or let's say billing we are about to work on, or various like let's say analytics that is also on the roadmap. So yeah, like general things about novel platform, various improvements. We are also working as everyone on bugs. So yeah, I think that would describe it.
Amazing. And before we continue, I also want to prompt basically the our chat and audience to, like, if you have any questions that you would like us or maybe Adam to address, or just maybe share something specific, just drop it in the comments, and we will gladly try to address that as much as we can. Now, one of the things that Adam and I are going to talk about on this particular office hour session is the implementation of the authentication that he actually kind of briefly mentioned. And um, we also wrote a blog post that kind of covering the case study of how it was implemented and what was kind of the story behind it. So if you want to check it out, we're going to mention it in the description of this video. So make sure just to see it for yourself if you desire it. And all right, so Adam, let's kind of start from the beginning, or even before the beginning. Let's just show the end product of what you guys in team platform implemented, right? So I'm going to share your screen now. All right.
Yeah.
So I really
So
hope that it's visible to everyone. um, right. Yeah, so let's so yeah, Adam, walk us through what's changed.
sure. So to give like a brief introduction, what's the change? We basically outsource our authentication and authorization to Clerk, which provides like a various built-in components we can then embed into our application. So we don't need to build everything ourselves. So they have these like custom components to log in, register, and basically provide a management for users, organizations, and everything that relates to it. So as you can see, for example, this entire login module or element is provided by Clerk, and it handles everything. So email validation, like various single sign-on buttons, for example, with GitHub and stuff like this. So that's like the first noticeable change right from the beginning. So this is now handled by Clerk. Obviously, we are still able to very easily kind of modify it with few clicks in dashboard. So let's say we want to enable sign in with Google or some other social platform. It's like a one click of a button away in Clerk dashboard. So that's a really amazing thing. And as everyone basically experienced as a developer when implementing all those things, there are a lot of things to think of about like validation and various like authentication flows, which now we don't need to basically care about. And we are still able to customize those things based on our design and do various modifications.
Mm-hmm.
So basically this would be the first element, and directly inside our application, inside our dashboard, there are also these authentication and user management elements. For example, here we have like an organization switcher where you can also like create the organization and add various things here. It's also like a fully built-in element which we are able to customize. Same here. So like the user settings drop downs and stuff like this, where we are also able to leverage these pre-built basically tabs. So everything here is kind of pre-built by Clerk. We just embed it and it provides all these things to update profile, to add more email addresses, like send verification links to those addresses, like having multiple email addresses and connected accounts. You can see like an organization information and everything in regards to that. Also, like the management of members and invites, which is like a really kind of annoying and painful to implement yourself. That's also something they provide. Same with roles, which you can customize fully, give like a granular permissions. And you are also free to embed your own tabs or do like various like mashups and whatever you like. So it's in this regard, it's very flexible. It basically enables our team to move faster in this regard. So we don't need to implement everything ourselves. But on the other hand, it also doesn't limit us to what's provided here. We can extend everything, so to say. Yeah, and maybe I can also show some other stuff from Clerk, what they provide. So they have basically various like pre-built components, which you can see in their documentation. So this is the ones I showed, but it's like an organization list, which can also suggest you which organization you are able to join based on your email. So that's also kind of valuable thing.
I have one question that I wanted to maybe ask right now before we kind of diving a bit deeper into the actual opportunities that we have now when we are integrated with Clerk. So the first question is, were there any other authentication providers considered in the process of basically the research before implementation?
Yeah, there are like other similar providers, let's say like OAuth or Zero Out, whatever like they're called. We consider also these ones, but Clerk seems to be like the best one in terms of what we needed and what it provided. It was kind of like a full package. And one of the benefits is also that we have like a few team members which worked before in Clerk and which have like a really deep knowledge about the systems, which was really valuable in the process of implementing those things. It really helped us a lot. So I think this was also something that puts weight on the decision.
I think that the folks who were here on or watched the previous office hour session with Powell and George may recall that George actually one of the people that was previously working at Clerk, and he's really kind of an an expert into all what's related to building components. So to what you said, Adam, in terms of the whole package that Clerk is offering, do you like, from your perspective, do you perceive this as basically they offered the most comprehensive component experience, or maybe in general the components that are being offered in terms of, you know, the selection of them, in, you know, again, in comparison maybe to the other authentication providers that are there?
Yeah, I think it's both, but mostly it seems like Clerk provides like the most frictionless way to implement things. Also considering that we needed to migrate existing infrastructure to support this. So that's also something to consider. Let's say when you are starting to build an application, it might be easier or at the same difficulty to implement some other solution. But what was great with Clerk is that they also support you while migrating an existing authentication mechanisms to Clerk. So that is actually quite an important thing to consider, given that most of the companies probably have like thousands of users already using their systems, unless you are, of course, implementing from scratch.
So I actually, like, again, if someone is watching this right now and maybe they are still in, I will call it the early stage, or maybe they are still in the kind of very early development process, do you think that all what's related to user management and authentication should be implemented using a provider, like from the get-go, like from the beginning?
Yeah, that's a good question. Not sure if it's like an easy answer to that. It depends on the stage of the company. I think everyone needs to find a balance of which things should they outsource or kind of use a third party. I think if you have like maybe a few users from the beginning, it probably doesn't make sense to use these all third party services. Obviously, it costs something, right? But sure, you can use also like free trial versions or free licenses. Yeah, every organization probably needs to kind of make a decision to find the right balance of what we can implement ourselves and what we should outsource. I think in this regard to authentication, it's something that everyone usually implements over and over, but there is like always an issue with that. So it also depends what you want to provide to users. Maybe some product doesn't need that much features regarding authentication and authorization. So maybe you just need a login and register, right? So in such case, you probably don't need such a robust solution. But let's say you also want roles and RBAC and stuff like this, then yeah, it's something to consider.
So do you think, again, it's maybe just to clarify this a bit. So if, for example, you from the get-go or from the beginning implementing kind of a ready solution for authentication, but it's not really related in any kind of particular way, ties to what the, for example, the application is really about. For example, I don't know, I want to start my own like to build my own type of let's go with I'm trying to think of some sort of an application, but let's go with some sort of forum, like I want to build my own Reddit or something. And like knowing that almost from the beginning, or like again from the very design stage and the architecture, I will be required to manage users and let them kind of sign up, leveraging, for example, GitHub, like basically connecting with GitHub, or continue, you know, with Google accounts, or like those type of stuff. From my perspective, when any product or any website is kind of supporting and offering this kind of authentication and sign up process, or kind of logging experience, where they have integrated with, the sign up or the login experience is already integrated with, for example, GitHub or Google Authentication, it signals to me, like as a user, that they may be mature enough, or they
Yes.
they are kind of ready and aligned with the base standard. Let's call it that way.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, as you said, it's not only about the things Clerk provides, but also what it guarantees. Like you expect from like some sort of website that it has some security guarantees and follows some security practices and standards, which Clerk
Hmm.
does, and it might be quite difficult to do yourself, right? You don't want to burn time on authentication and securing everything, because in most cases it's not your like primary product offering in most
Yeah.
cases. So usually your time is better invested in something else, right? To providing new features and not dealing with making like a secure product in terms of authentication. So
Hmm.
yeah, you can offload this to Clerk, which provides like a various security standards and guarantees. So that's also like a very good point. Yeah, and you basically you can make sure that if you put some, like, let's say, like single sign-on button with socials, it works out of the box, and that's also something that the user values in terms of conversion, let's say,
Hmm.
compared to typing email and password, right? So yeah, definitely, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And okay, so basically, kind of diving back to the task that you were given, which is we had for, I think, a bit longer than 2 years in. We had like the in-house kind of pre-built, in-house built authentication, and basically all the user management was just in our internal database. And we did offer the authentication with GitHub. Like, I know that we built it in-house. I know that we did not offer the Google authentication, but we basically had GitHub, and we had like sign up with your email, and kind of that was the usual and the basic way to go. um, and as we kind of grow, we started to receive much more feature requests that involved, um, that required us to invest resources into enhance this infrastructure for the user management. So um, this is where you come in your task. So we already had a database full of the users, and kind of the user data that it was tied to all what Novo is basically providing, which is the workflows, the subscribers, maybe kind of a lot of data that was just very hardly tied together, or like hard tied together. um, how did you approach it from the beginning? Kind of what were your question points that um, guide you at the beginning of your task?
Yeah, so that's a good question. It was quite a big challenge, right? Especially this what you mentioned, because you at one hand you have like an existing system with like a database of users. Everything is kind of tied together, and it works together. And basically, user management or user and organization and members, all those entities are usually quite crucial to the applications. They're like a critical parts, and they're mostly referenced everywhere or used everywhere. And what didn't help in this manner is that I was like a new joiner, so I didn't even understand the system well. So at first, I kind of had to enumerate or kind of assess what we have, how it works. So I create like various diagrams to understand how it works. What really helped is that our architecture was quite clean. Um, we had like a minimal tech debt that would interfere with this. So that helped really a lot. That we also used like a standardized Nest.js framework, so it was quite easy to navigate in terms of code. So yeah, first we needed to assess like what are our data models, how we want to approach this, what everything needs to be changed, and what we need to shift to Clerk, and how we are going to how are we going to do it. So and then we basically dissected this into kind of like a bunch of parts. One of them being migration, one of them being also some kind of like synchronization in between the migration and the time we launch this, and basically all the code changes required for this. I would say most of the work was obviously on backend, because from like a front end perspective, uh, since Clerk provides all these built-in components and hooks, it was kind of like a pleasant experience in that regard. But yeah, like changing these critical parts of code base on backend is always quite like a difficult task to do right. Which of course we had some issues which we then need to figure out. So, but yeah, that would be it.
So one of the things that, for example, really helped me to cover the case study that mainly you, but I'm talking about the general platform team was tackling, is really your visual diagrams that you basically outlined for yourself to understand how all the architecture works and what are the different connectors, and how everything basically communicates. And my question is, it's maybe a bit less of this particular for this particular case, but generally your approach is to try and visualize what you need to do first.
Yeah, I think I've learned this kind of method to doing diagrams, as you said, mostly for myself. Otherwise, if I just write it, usually it's easier to just look once at diagram, especially in programming, than reading something. So I guess this visual representation helps a lot. And of course, when I do something, I usually forgot about it in a week, and then I need to. Someone asks me about it, and I need to like remember what I did. So I usually pull up these diagrams or just point them to the documentation. So yeah, in one sense, it helps me during the implementation, and usually it's also useful after the implementation to kind of remember what is it about. So yeah, I think it's really, really valuable to do these diagrams.
Yeah, I actually I think again, you just tell me if it's proper or not, but I would love to maybe show the diagrams. Is it okay? Do you think it's fine? Oh yeah. Oh, we actually already have. Okay, got it. Amazing. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, these are the ones from the blog post, right? It's
Right.
like some of them taken from the docs,
Right.
but I guess yeah, I use just like the simple ones to kind of represent how it works, and then to visualize like what's changed,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and what is the flow of some of the function, and when the change where the change happens.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, so basically, let's say we have some strategy with some flow, and then we swapped some parts and some stayed the same.
Mm-hmm.
So it's usually best to represent them with diagrams. Of course, the hardest part is then to kind of maintain them. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for example, flowcharts like this, or like when you get where you can see the interaction between various components, are really helpful to kind of fully grasp how the flow of authentication is going, especially when you need to do some like special edge cases, let's say some syncing of entities between two systems or multiple systems. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, it's always kind of easier to remember the diagrams. So yeah, for example, this particular diagram explains like one of the methods that helped us to do this kind of Clerk thing, because we also have like two versions of the application. So one
Mm-hmm.
is like a community open source one, and we also offer this like cloud offering, enterprise one. and we obviously want to fully support both of them. So we still kind of use the authentication we had before, and these diagrams basically explains how we inject the new authentication or the enterprise authentication to the existing
Mm-hmm.
application without kind of riddling the application with if else statements or something like that. So uh, yeah, I guess in these regards, it's really really great to have the diagrams explain things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's something that should be much broadly adopted in terms of, how engineers approaching maybe even any task. I'm not sure what should be the scope for it not to be kind of relevant. Maybe like if it's only a front end kind of features or implementation, maybe it's not necessary. It's not entirely necessary, but I think kind of if we are talking about backend integration, and especially when it's mainly involved connecting different services and different databases, especially if there are multiple parts and it touches multiple layers of the application, I think it's very valuable. Um,
Yeah, just to jump on this, I
yeah.
guess these days now, like one great use case of all the like AI models is that they can generate these diagrams, which
Mm.
which looks much better than the ones I produced here, and they can be generated from code. So I guess we would be able to see diagrams more frequently, or we would be able to generate diagrams automatically just by kind of putting the code base as an input for these AI models.
Hmm.
So yeah, but one of the cons of this is that I always kind of spend time to just to align these arrows, because usually I want to have it like kind of aligned, and then I spend time like selecting colors, then it looks kind of like this like circus, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, so it has its cons, and you need to like spend time to kind of make it at least somehow digestible.
Look, it's all. I think that your kind of personal touch into basically make it more visually appealing, because I guess right now, and it's very good point, the fact that AI maybe already could generate pretty fine diagrams based on the code base. I still think that it will not be as visually appealing, and it will not be kind of that well tuned into basic, like, for example, when you as an software engineer, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you are doing it for yourself and you are connecting those dots and trying to explain it to your, like, when you are building this type of diagram, you're basically explaining to yourself how the system is connected. And this type of um, representation, like the visual representation, it's like your way to sort of take notes of how the code is actually function, because the code is
Yes.
already written with words and if statements and basically all the functions. But this time, like, the way to take notes from code is actually to represent that visually in diagram, as you did here. And I think it's
Yeah,
wonderful.
exactly as you said. Like for AI, you usually need to know what you need from the AI to output. So
Yeah.
usually you need to like describe it very precisely most of the times to get like a diagram. But yeah, in this regard, it was more like notes. So I was just learning by drawing those diagrams how it works. So then I basically reworked them like 1,000 times. So yeah, it's more like notes or like an internal
Yeah,
documentation.
and that's definitely the way that kind of helps me to digest like all the process that you went through, and kind of all the textual representation of the implementation that you went through. The fact that I had those visual aids to understand, oh, okay, so this connector and this microservice is actually um, sits here in between this and this, and it's connected to that. So it really helped me um, just understand what you wrote, and not necessarily in like inside the code. Like, of course, maybe the most straightforward way, but again, I do not really able, or maybe I'm not really enjoying to operate in the most straightforward way, to just dive into the code and try to dissect it, and to understand how everything is connected, to then explain to a third person, okay, this is how this is how it works, this is how it's connected, this is how it's supposed to communicate with one another.
Yeah,
And yeah.
and exactly, that's something I also want to highlight. In Novo, we are keeping this culture that everything is kind of nice, visually documented. So every time I am doing some feature, and especially as a new joiner, when I just search Notion for something, just for some keyword, let's say billing, I found like these amazing diagrams by team, like these mermaid diagrams, and everything was like super polished. So yeah, that's something I really like about Novo, that everything is quite kept in like a visual way, and it's kept up to date. So yeah, that's something I like.
I would like to ask you, for example, after you went through all this process, and of course, this process was documented in the blog post, and I'm not really want to, I don't want you to kind of repeat what people might just kind of go and see for themselves. Um, but for example, if you would need to do it again, okay, um, how you would do it, how you would approach it.
Yes, that's a good question. I will try to maybe find a way how to cut this to even like a smaller parts uh, that are maybe more digestible, or that can be released kind of independently of each other. So maybe just like do maybe some small part and put it behind the feature flag. What was especially hard here is that everything needed to be kind of released at once, because everything kind of related together. So when you change like a user entity, then it's tied to an organization, right? So you kind of need to do also that. So I would maybe try to invest more time to find the ways to cut this to like a smaller chunks of work.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, maybe I would even try to ask people more how things work, uh, because yeah, some things are not like obvious for a first glance that how it is working, and I was not aware that I changed some things that later we found should not be changed, or should work differently.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, unless you have like a really super good like 110% coverage with tests, which is almost never the case, then yeah, it's kind of difficult to uncover some of the cases, especially with change this large. So yeah, that was something I would do to find a way to split this.
Do you think that if you had a better test coverage, it would help you to navigate through those implementations easier?
I think we had like quite a good test coverage, but you ideally need more kinds of tests to cover everything. So it's not just about like end-to-end test, but in this particular case, even like load test or performance test would be helpful to kind of detect some potential bottlenecks with introducing like a third-party system.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have like all sorts of tests, then it's definitely easier to do something like that. But it applies probably to like every change, not this specifically, but every quite bigger change requires more testing, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay, so basically, can you give me like maybe um, 2 3 points of um, how, again, in retrospective, would you break it down? For example, if tomorrow someone, again, maybe from another company, from another startup, maybe they kind of facing the same issue, or another engineer that is facing kind of the same task, they basically already have they had their system and the authentication internally built internally, and it's really tied to their database, and to all the business logic of their business. And they decided and like made a decision that they are going to offload the user management aspect. How would you kind of guide a person to implement that much more smoothly, like based on your experience?
Yeah, I think I would try to follow like this approach, which is often used also when you, let's say, are breaking down monolith to microservices or like vice versa. But maybe try to build the second solution along with the original one, and maybe just hide it behind the feature flags and just enable one thing, or just to gradually kind of integrate it with like an existing solution. But you will basically keep two versions at the same time. So what I mean by that, let's say you have some database with users, you will keep it as it is, but you will also mirror duplicate.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm losing you a bit, Adam. I'm not sure if you can do anything
Data.
about it.
Is it a bit better now? Or no?
Yeah, wait a second. Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Wait a second. I mean, I sort of can hear you. I just let's. Okay, I'm going to turn off your screen sharing so you can also disable it on your side,
Sure.
and I think it will be better. Okay.
Yeah,
Let's see.
I hope
Yeah, now
it's
I
better. It's
think
showing me
it's
like 8 out of, yeah.
good.
It's showing me 8 out of 10
So,
like network connection. So I hope it's good.
okay, yeah. So please kind of continue your point.
Yeah, so what I was saying is that you should kind of try to keep the systems, both systems running at the same time, and try to sync it. If you have the means, what also can help is that if you have like another instance of your production
Mm-hmm.
replica exposed to pub,
Mm-hmm.
you just predict like 20%, 10% of all the requests. And at some point, you can keep like, let's say, both of them. Instance is just for your like testing. It always helps such things. Or another approach might be just to like duplicate all your requests to some like external system where you have this new authentication service implemented. So yeah, I would probably choose this approach to kind of not necessarily refactor, but to change it gradually and to try to keep both systems in sync until the point you are absolutely sure everything works as expected.
So I will just kind of try to summarize what you said, because we just had some delays in the video and
Sure.
in the sound. So what you mean is, for example, if I would face the same task as you were, so your approach or what you recommend is basically to run a parallel instance of the logic with the new authentication provider, and that is going to communicate with your internal server and like the internal service and the internal database. But at the same time, you are not really making this hard migration where you're switching from one system to another in like in instant. Like it's not something that's supposed to happen in one time. It's something that you first testing the edge cases, maybe as you said, kind of understanding the bottlenecks in terms of the potential load. So if you running those two instances at the same time, so internally you keep on delivering, and like your production is not really going off or offline, but it still kind of continue to communicate with the servers, and kind of everything was just the way it was. But simultaneously, you also basically testing the integration with the new provider, which supposed to run the same logic, the same service, and to communicate with the database. But there is no kind of any service, like offline service in the way. And once you understand that the communication with the provider is actually working well, and it kind of it actually managed to pass the maybe the load tests, and it managed to really deliver on what you are trying to do, and it may be kind of maybe even separated into cohorts. So you're basically offloading the registration process and the user management process in cohorts, which means you are not necessarily introducing it to the whole users. You are introducing it like to 1 out of 5 users. Like out of 5 users are going to gradually migrate to the new system. Have I understood correctly?
Yes. Basically, yeah, there are multiple variations to this based
Mm-hmm.
based on what resources you have and what capacity. Someone might have like a means to have like a completely new instance, but ideally you want to keep it like compatible, so you don't want to cause any downtime for the users when you are switching the
Yeah.
systems, which is quite a challenge, especially because it's authentication, right? So you want to make sure, let's say, both JWT tokens are supported in both systems in the
Mm-hmm.
transition time. So these are all the things you need to consider. Ideally, if something goes wrong, you want to be able to kind of swap back to the old system if that's
Mm-hmm.
also possible. So you don't want to make like a cut from one system to other and without
Yeah.
means to roll back. So yeah, that's exactly basically what you said.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. So, Adam, I really appreciate the time that like basically came here and share with us your personal experience and how it was for you. I personally really enjoyed that, and I learned so much from this conversation in particular, but also from the case study and the process of your research before implementation, and then your notes after the implementation or during the implementation process. All the diagrams. I think it's very you just kind of generating value as you are also generating like you generating documentation, high quality documentation value of the process that you went through, as well as actually delivering the value in terms of the features that you have implemented. And I think it's really awesome, and you did a wonderful job. So
Yeah,
really, thank you, man.
thank you. I
So
also enjoyed
and thank you
the
for
entire. Go on, sorry.
yeah. I just wanted to say thank you for coming on and participating in the office hours.
Yeah, thank you as well. It was great talking to you. I enjoyed it.
All right. And if any of our community or people who are watching this would like maybe to direct some questions to Adam or maybe to the team, or kind of anything that comes to your mind, feel free to join to our Discord and kind of post your questions there. Maybe leave your feedback. If you want maybe to request some other features that authentication related, and you don't really need blah, blah. You don't really need to concern yourself if it's authentication related or not. Just if you have some feature requests and some stuff that you would like us to support, like you would like maybe Novo to have another way to authenticate yourself, maybe, I don't know, using Twitter or LinkedIn. I have no idea. Yeah, so just kind of post it into our roadmap feature suggestions. And again, now when we have offloaded a huge chunk of it to Clerk, we now have much more maneuver space um, to integrate and introduce new functionalities into our system, because like the main work was already done. So yeah, so we are really open and happy to deliver any value that you might need for us to support. So again, thank you so much for tuning in, for watching this. If you have any questions, also leave them in the comments below this video. And again, Adam, thank you so much for joining, man.